Hello there. Happy Tuesday. Thank you for joining me. My name is Alyssa Thomas from Penguin and Fish, where we make lovely and quirky hand embroidery kits. And I am here every weeknight at 8:30 p.m. Central Time. And it's a time where we can relax and craft together for about an hour. And I work on projects all the way through from beginning to end so you can be part of the whole process along the way. So tonight we are working on the Splendid Sampler 2, and we are continuing the comfort food block. Cute little ice cream cone. So this is foundation paper pieced, and we started it last night, and we got a little ways. So here we prepped our pieces, our foundation paper pieces, and we got a start on the top. So we picked the colors. Got a start on the A section, so we will continue that today, and we may even get going on that B section. So if you haven't ever done foundation paper piecing, be sure to watch last night's video on YouTube at Penguin and Fish Movies on YouTube, and it's the comfort food block. So you can just start, you can look for the comfort food block and it'll have all the videos there. This will be video 2 when we're done tonight. So awesome, you guys. Let's flip around and get going on this block. Alrighty, all right. Nice seeing everyone pop in again today. Thank you again for joining me. All right. Got the cute little ice cream cone. Again, here is the 2 sections. We have the A section. You can see all the letter A's on here. And then we have the B section. So all the B's. I'm doing it a little different from the pattern in that I have cut off all the seam allowances. So on the pattern, like here's this B section, for example. It had the seam allowance drawn right on there. You will not always have that drawn on there for you when you get a foundation paper piecing pattern. So just to show you what a foundation paper piecing pattern might look like, it might look like this, all connected. So you have to actually search out the different letters. So all of these are A's, all of these are B's. So I know I cut out the A's, so the A's are its own piece, and I cut out the B's, so the B's are its own piece. But when you receive the pattern, it might look all together, you know, so you can actually kind of see the shape that you're working with. You will have to do the work of finding the different pieces, the sections, and making sure that everything in the same section is together. In this case, they drew them out for us. They divided the sections for us, but that's not always going to be the case for foundation paper piecing. So, all right, let's continue. We have gone through A1, A2, A3, and A4. You can see our 4 pieces on here. We are starting to carve the shape of that A1 piece. Our next piece is going to be up here. Then we got a couple side pieces, and that will finish carving that shape. So, all right, let's get going on that. Again, I'm going to continue this from last night. So if I'm skipping around a little bit or saying a phrase you might not know, be sure to ask, but we may have talked about it a little bit last night. I'm going to try and get through a little bit more here tonight. So I've color-coded all this. The white represents white fabric. So my whole outside is going to be white. I'm trying to use white in my backgrounds as much as I can in this quilt. So, all right, we are working on the A5 piece. So I want to fold that along that line first. So I'm going to cover up. I'm concerned with what I'm working on now is the line, or A5. So there's lines all over the place, right? So it's kind of hard to know what you're working with. I'm working with the piece that we're working on now, and then everything that happened before. So A6 and A7 happened later. I'm going to pretend that they don't even exist. I'm going to just think about A5 and what happened before. And that's, you know, this A4, A1, A3, A2. That's all this stuff up here. So I'm concerned with the line in between those two things. So right there, that's what I'm concerned with right there. So I'm going to lay this down. I'm going to cover up everything that we did before with the postcard. Again, I'm still ignoring the future squares. And I'm going to put it right on that line. And again, still ignoring the other bits, I'm going to fold over that A5 piece on my postcard. You could use like a manila folder for this. You want like a stiff paper that has like a sharp edge to it still, like a postcard does. All right, and that reveals our seam allowance. So to make that perfect seam allowance, I'm using that add a quarter ruler. All I'm doing is it's measuring a 1/4 inch from that fold. And let's trim off all this excess fabric. All right, so that is scrap. And there we are. We have our perfect 1/4 inch seam allowance. So I can fold that back. Okay, and we are looking for a white rectangle. And I need the rectangle to be as big as that A5 piece plus a generous seam allowance around it. I wonder if we can fit it in right here. Let's just give it a quick press. Working with all these blobby shapes. That's kind of the benefit of foundation paper piecing. Actually, I should bring out my scrap bin again. Oh, so I can lay this on here and kind of see where it should go. But if you have the template, I've made another photocopy, like a second photocopy of the template. I'm using it as a guide. So I'm going to cut out this A5 piece. And that'll be easier to use as a guide to cut out my shape versus just laying this on top of it. Just makes it a hair cleaner, hair easier. Alrighty. So again, I need a piece that's as big as this A5 piece plus the generous seam allowance, and you can see that this little nubbin is not going to be big enough because this is too close. This is not a 1/4 inch away. I think it's too much of a gamble. I don't like it. So instead, since I just talked about scraps, why don't I get out my little scrap area here. So I've been saving all my scraps from here, and I'm sure I have tons of white scraps that would work here. All right, I can see some already. Like look at this shape right here. That might be about perfect. There we go. That's the type of seam allowance I want around it. So I'm just going to trim that, and we're done. I'm probably not even going to deal with ironing it or anything. There we go. So one thing I didn't mention, because my white fabric, I talk about this in the first video, but my white fabric doesn't have a right or wrong side. Typically when you're doing the fabric, I'll just get an example out here. All right, so here's an example. This has a right side, that's the side with the pattern, and then the wrong side, it's kind of hard to tell, but that's the back side, the part that doesn't have as much color as the front. So you want the right side down. So the side with the printing, put it down against your fabric, or against the table here, like this. Oh, this one, yeah, there we go. So right side down, and then you're gonna use your template. So the template, you should have the writing side up. So that's how it should be, the right side down of the fabric, and then the printed side up. So with this, with the white, I have to kind of remember which side was right and wrong. So I'm going to have this be the right side and this the wrong side. So what I like doing, I need the straight edge There we go. The straight edge of this A5 piece to match up with that straight edge we just cut. So I just kind of like, you know, because that's the edge that matches, right? I kind of like just butting it up against each other like that. I don't need this guy anymore. And then folding it so the right sides go together. There we go, like that. So I know that that goes there. All right, I'm just kind of putting it where I think. I mean, these other pieces on top are a little bit wider, so it's a little hard to tell where it should go. And that's why I'm going to do my little sewing test. So I'm going to I'm going to place it where I think it should go, and then flip it over, and then I'm going to grab some straight pins and stick them right along the line there. Let me grab another one. There we go. So it's almost as if we've already sewn along that line. Oh, you love this comfort food block, Robin. You haven't done this one yet. This is a super simple, this would be a good beginning paper piecing block if you haven't done foundation paper piecing before. So be sure to check out that first video from last night. All right, but here's what we're doing here. So we're fake sewing along that line, and now I'm fake pressing it. So I'm pressing my piece up. Look, we can start to see that little ice cream cone form. But what we're concerned with is, is this placed in a spot where it covers that A5 piece plus the generous seam allowance around it? And look, there's a lot more seam allowance here than here. This is actually cutting it kind of close. So I'm going to scooch it that way. So that means I'm going to scooch it down that way. So let's just remove these. I'm not going to test it again. It looked like I needed to scooch it like 1/8 of an inch or so. So I'm just going to move it down right there. And now we should be good. I'm going to just go ahead and sew. You can do your test again. I recommend doing the test again, but with a simple rectangle like this, I'm pretty sure that we're fine. So if it was a weird shape or a triangle or some weird trapezoid, I would definitely test again, because those can be brain teasers. It's hard to know if it works. So, all right, I'm going to sew, and I'm going to sew from that point right there to this point right here, and I'm not going to go over it. I'm still holding the fabric so my edges are together. So I'm going to flip that and lay it down on the board here. Oh, you got the split hexes. So I have not done that one yet, Bonnie. That's a pretty cute one though. Is that English paper pieced? It must be, right? I don't know. But I think that's on my list to do soon, that one. All right, so I'm gonna stitch from that line to the line down here. I'm gonna put a little back tack in there. That's just going backwards once. That's kind of like tying a knot, and then sewing right along that line. It's like a coloring book. It's so easy. You just follow the lines. You can cut weird big shapes because they get trimmed down. It's kind of relaxing. There's no like measurement, no strict cutting involved, which is just relaxing for me at least. All right, I'm just trimming the little threads off. All right, let's press. I've made a mess over on my pressing mat though. That's the one thing with foundation paper piecing. I find myself just always moving my mess everywhere. But, oh well, you do what you have to do, I suppose. All right, so I'm going to press this open, just finger press it. You can see that it's my stitching, since we only stitch from that line to that line, I have some excess fabric on the edges. So I'm, like right here, I'm finger pressing it so I can first finger press it along the seam, and then I'm just extending that line to the part that's not sewn. So just like that, and then we're gonna hit it with the iron. I always have the fabric up with the iron because I don't want to get the iron on this side, because all this printing could come off on my iron. All right, here we are. That is the A5 piece done. A6 and A7 are left here. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to just cut my A6 piece out. I suspect that A6 and A7 are the same size, and that's what I want to just check first. And then I'm going to, when I cut the fabric, I'll just cut both right away. That makes things a lot easier. Since these pieces are a little bit big, I don't think I'll look in my scrap bin. I'll just use the fabric I have here because I don't know if I have scraps big enough for that. I probably do, but I don't want to dig. Okay, so that's our A6 piece. Yep, same size as the A7. So that'll help us speed things along when we cut things out. But first of all, let's look at the A6 piece. So I'm concerned with right now it's only one line, but it's the line between A6 and everything that happened before. Ignoring A7. I'm covering up everything that happened before and folding over that A6. There's our seam allowance. It's all sorts of seams, all sorts of fabrics and stuff now. So I'm going to trim that. Let's get that 1/4 inch on there. Get my cutting glove on, trying to make that a habit. Okay, there we go. All our little trimmings. So we cut just big blobs before, or like our generous seam allowances, and that's just all the little extra bits. And we're left with our perfect 1/4 inch seam allowance, which is always just thrills me a little bit because we started out with such big odd shapes. There, look how clean that's looking already with that trim compared to, this side, that's all our crazy blobs still. Shoosh, nice. Okay, so let's find our A6 and our A7 piece out of our fabric here. So I'm hoping I can just fold this together and that it'll be a big enough shape. Oh, plenty. Not quite big enough that way. So again, we need our generous 1/4 inch seam allowance. So I think I'm going to go about right there. And you know what? I think I'm just going to grab my rotary cutter and snip it. So I'm aligning the edge that is connected, the folded edge here. That's the same as this edge. That's the edge, the part that's going to connect along that line. I want that on a straight edge. So I'm holding that up against the straight edge here. You can trim your own straight edge. So I folded it in half so I have the two pieces. In this case, if this was a pattern piece of paper or pattern piece of fabric, the right side of the fabric would be down. On this part, I'm going to just go zoop. There, that's some extra. Same thing here. There, that's a good generous seam allowance. And make sure to get this side here too. There, that should be more than enough. Some extra scraps. Okay, so in this case, I have to remember what's the right side or wrong side. I mean, it's just a rectangle, so it probably won't be that difficult. But so with this white, this is the reverse piece. So I'm going to reverse it right now. So in theory, if this was patterned, this would be the pattern side and this would be the back side. And same here, this would be the pattern side and the back side. So I'm just going to lay this here. This is going to be just on standby for my A7 piece. And now the A6 piece, remember I like to, this matches this here, so I don't need that anymore. I like to line up that perfect edge we just cut with the straight edge from this, and then fold the right sides together. There we go. So we can align that. I am not going to do the test on this one because I can already tell, it's a rectangle, so I'm not folding it at an angle. I'm folding it right over the rectangle. I can tell right away that it's positioned well enough to have my generous seam allowance all the way around. So I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just going to flip and get to the sewing machine. All right. So this time we're going to do this a little different. Ooh, let's realign these edges a little bit. So this is a line that hits our edges, or where our seam allowance would be. So whenever I get to a point like that, I actually stitch into the seam allowance. So I'm going to extend the stitching up at least 1/4 of an inch on either side here, because they're both hitting the edge. You know, here I don't because it's hitting other paper pieces, but when it does hit an edge, I extend the stitching a little bit. So I'm going to just go right here about. Oop. Little back stitch in there again. And now I'm along that line. And then again, extending 1/4 inch or so here. All right, there we go. Trim those ends again. All right, and we should be good to go. Time to press this. Ah, it's looking cute. All right. Over to the pressing mat and iron. So again, I'm going to finger press this first, just to extend those lines a little easier. There we go. It's coming together. All right, you guys, only one more piece for this, for the top of it. Again, if you guys are just popping in, we are making a little ice cream cone shape here. It's got 2 sections. This is the A section. This is the B section. You can tell because they have B in front of all the numbers and A in front of all the numbers. And we only have one more piece here. So that's that A7 piece. We already have it cut out. So let's get to folding. We got to do the folding part first to get us that perfect seam allowance. So covering up everything that happened before, flipping that guy over, and measuring our 1/4 inch seam allowance. This is my add 1/4 ruler that does it without even thinking. Don't have to line up anything, it just does it for me, which is amazing. All it is a ruler that has a little lip on it. There's that little lip, and it's just like a bump out. That's 1/4 of an inch. So when with this thick piece of postcard here and the fold, you can feel the fold. Like I can physically feel that. I could do that part with my eyes closed. Although I don't recommend doing the cutting part with your eyes closed. That would be no good. All right. So again, here is that piece that we cut out for the A7. We did that, normally I would do that now, but since it was the same as that A6 piece, I cut it out at the same time. So I'm aligning those 2 straight edges. And again, we're just gonna fold it as if we're putting the right sides together. There we are. Oop, this guy got unfolded. So again, I don't think I'm gonna deal with doing my test because it's just a straight fold that way. There's no weird angles. And I can tell, I can do like a little test here. I can tell that I'm gonna have enough seam allowance all the way around. Like if I shifted it too far this way, then I wouldn't have enough seam allowance there, but I can just see it here a little easier than usual. So, all right, let's hold that and, oop, can't pick it up. There we go. Okay, I have those right sides together, the edges align, and I'm gonna just carefully flip it over. And again, that is those lines are touching the edge, so I'm gonna extend the sewing into that seam allowance. 1/4 inch or so. Little back tack, and now I'm on the line. And then the little back tack again. And we are good. So we just have to press this and then we are done. Well, almost done. We have to just trim it down, but we are just about done with the A section and can move over to the B. So So let's finish our little cycle here of our flat work here, then sewing and pressing. Let's finger press that up. All right. Looks good. Okay, that is the A piece. Look, we have the top of our little ice cream cone done. Here's just a peek what it'll look like with the bottom on. It's gonna be cute. I love it. Just a little lone ice cream cone in the middle of our white square. I think it's gonna be fun. All right, so we're gonna do one last thing here. I'm going to trim around this, and I'm thinking just to myself here, I'm wondering if I should leave the extra edge around. So like when it's sewn together like this, if I should leave this extra edge, because I will be sewing this into a quilt later that I'm gonna free motion quilt, and I've been trying to leave as much extra edge around as possible. I think I might leave this edge extra big and blobby and trim it down later when I'm ready to put it into the quilt. So I can leave that little excess for now. So really, the only edge I'm going to cut right now is this bottom line, because this bottom line has to line up with this right here. So I'm going to flip this around. Devlin, you think that's a good idea? Yeah, I tend to forget that with paper piecing, but it is nice sometimes. At least in my case, I know with my quilting. So sometimes when you quilt, it pulls on the fabric, right? Especially if you're doing a poofy batting. So it pulls on the fabric, so you lose edging around because it's pulling towards the center, so you're losing some of that fabric around the outside. So if I leave a little extra here, I think I'll be in a better scenario later. So what I'm going to do now, this isn't even big enough. I'm going to, well, let's get a bigger ruler. Hold on here. Okay, so I'm going to measure 1/4 inch from this edge, and that's what's going to be my seam allowance for when I sew it to this piece here. So let's align the 1/4 inch. I'm not using the add 1/4 here because there's not enough for it to bump up against because I don't have that fold or anything. So I got a big ruler out. Yeah, so if you guys remember, I've already cut off, like I started without a seam allowance compared to the pattern that does have a seam allowance on. If you are using the pattern like this, and just I want you to keep in mind that this is the line that you're going to measure that 1/4 inch off of, kind of like I am right here. It's going to be the edge of mine because I cut off that seam allowance versus here. So you don't want a 1/4 inch from this seam allowance. You want a 1/4 inch from the line. So it's these actual piece lines that we're concerned with, not this extra dotted line. And that's, again, why I kind of cut it off. Why I think you don't actually need it, because this is the point that we're adding the seam allowance. You don't need it built in to the instructions. I actually think that it's easier this way. It gives you a better sense of knowing that you have to go all the way around when you cut your blobs out. So there we are, 1/4 inch. And again, like I said, I don't think I'm going to, the parts that are going to end up being the outside of our block, I don't think I'm going to bother trimming those right now. When we line up these pieces, we're going to line them up on the places that they meet in the middle here. Like this guy's going to be right here. So this point has to meet up with this point here. So I don't even need the ends to match up perfectly as long as I know that those are matched up. So we're going to leave that excess. That's a section, you guys. Done-zo. So that guy's done. I'm not going to take the paper out until the whole piece is finished. So this is it for now. So let's see. Let's start this second piece. Now this is the B piece. Let's take a look at it first. So we've color coded it already. We did that yesterday. This crisscross, it represents this fabric here is going to be our cone. And I have it kind of, this is a little reminder for me that I wanted to do this on the diagonal. So I would have like these cute little diagonal X's versus just a straight on like gingham. So that's why I have it crisscrossed here. We have the B1 piece, that's our main piece here with that fabric, and then B2, B3, B4 are all more white. So we just have the two fabrics here. So all right, I'm gonna start out, this is a one piece, so B1, the ones of every section are gonna be treated differently than the rest of the numbers. So the one, what we're gonna do is, first of all, I'm going to cut out my little, where'd my paper scissors go? I'm going to cut out my extra template. I'm going to cut out that B1 piece so we can use it as our cutting guide. This is going to be especially helpful now because we're kind of fussy cutting this fabric. Because I want it diagonal, I want to make sure that I get those diagonals just right, and having this as a guide is going to help us out, I think. All right, so let's give this a little press. I think we'll try and get it up here. Oh wait, I don't know where we're going to get it from because it's going to be on a diagonal. This piece is small, let's just press the whole piece. Right in the middle there somewhere. I already almost forgot that I was going to do diagonal. Okay. So let's lay this. So now this one goes, now we're not using white anymore, so it'll be easier to tell what we're doing. So the pattern side goes down. And then here's my little template. I want it to be on a diagonal. Oh, here, let's just get it out of this little nook here. It's like the only part that I didn't press very well, so let's do that again. Okay. Could go this way. Yeah. So I need a piece that's as big as the B1 piece plus our generous seam allowance, right? Remember, I need that generous seam allowance. So I think I'm gonna go about right like that. So, you know, if I get rid of that, then you can kind of see I have that generous seam allowance. So I'm going to trim. And we'll trim this way too. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect as long as you have enough of it. And just so it's a little bit easier for us, I'm going to trim this off. Sometimes I won't. I'll leave that blob because it'll get trimmed off later, but in this case, we're going to just do it now. All right, there is our B1 piece. So I don't need this anymore, our guide, because I'm going to be replacing it with our real piece here. So all I'm going to do, again, this is a number 1 piece, and what I need for that is just a little bit of glue stick. You can use pins, but I like the glue just because it lies a little bit flatter, and it's just temporary. So I'm going to kind of place this B1 piece where I want it on this fabric, and I'm just checking that my seam allowances are 1/4 inch yet, and they're plenty good. So I'm just going to put a little dab of glue right there. And since this is kind of a big piece, I'll pop it on the bottom. And there we go. That's all we need to do. And technically, B1 is complete. So that's why the 1 piece is different than all of the other numbers, is because you're just cutting a shape and gluing it on. There's no sewing, there's no pressing, there's nothing else involved. But ow, it's gonna be cute. Look, oh, it looks like an ice cream cone already. Oh, I love the diagonals that way. All right, I'm stoked. Okay, you guys, let's keep going. I think we might even finish this tonight. All right, let's do, okay, we have B2 and B3. They both look the same shape. We'll do a check on that, but I'm going to cut both of those out at the same time, the same way that I cut these two pieces out at the same time. Now, these are a little bit different because they have, you know, it's not a perfect rectangle. That makes it easy. It's got some goofy shape to it. So we're going to have to pay attention to what the right side and the wrong side of the fabric is, even though I'm using white. That doesn't have a real right side or wrong side. But if we flip it, then it's not going to match up perfectly here. Like it's going to end up being like cut way down here or something. So right side and wrong side is important, even though you don't have a pattern on one of the sides. So I'm going to cut out the B2 piece as our guide. And we'll just double check that it's the same, but just reversed for B3. So here's the thing, Kay. You can't just cut rectangles. So Kay is asking if I could just cut rectangles. And so I think what she's meaning is, could I just cut my fabric around this as a rectangle? I can't. I mean, I can, but I would have to trim it down. But in theory, I can't, because this is the edge that has to match up with this edge. So if we cut a rectangle, it would fold along this line, so it would fold upward. So like if this was the piece, right? If we just cut a rectangle, you know, the rectangle is going to get angled when it goes against that piece. So, you know, now it's not covering this little triangle up here, right? So we need a piece that, you know, yeah, so if I'm sewing right sides together on the rectangle and I fold it down, it's at an angle that we're going to lose. Whereas with this, cutting the shape, it's going to start out looking super weird like this. It's going to look like just odd to match up. But when we fold it back, it's going to end up being perfect. So it is better to cut the shape that's here. So all right, I'm going to put this to the side. Let's do that. Let's cut our shape. So that's why rectangles are easy, because you can easily visualize that it just folds straight over. But when it's got those angles, that's when it gets a little goofy. So this has a little stain on it, looks like, so I'm going to try to avoid that. But I am going to still put this together, and I'm going to show you a little thing. So I'm going to start out with kind of a rectangle, right? Like this. So I have my generous seam allowance. I'll trim this. But remember, I need the straight edge. It's not important that this is a straight edge or this or this. It's important the straight edge that matches up to the point that it's going to be on right here. So this is what I need, a straight edge. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to make my own straight edge. So I'm going to just rotate this. Oh, I think I'm going, oh no, I thought I saw another stain, but I think we're good. So I'm going to position that and make my own straight edge. And I'm still going, this one's going to be a little closer to that 1/4 inch seam allowance, but I'm still going to go a hair over just to be safe. There. So that is our important straight edge. The rest of this can be blobs. Boop. Boop. Oh, I don't have my glove on. There we go. Those are unequal. They don't matter. But that one, that's what matters. Okay, so here is my two pieces of fabric. In theory, I folded them. So if it had a pattern, I'd fold them so that they're the mirror image. So this is the B2 piece. This is the right side. This is the wrong side. And then this flipped is going to be our B3 piece. and this would be the right side and the wrong side, which would be clear if we had done this on normal printed fabric, because I would have folded it so they would be reversed, right? Because this time the fabric's up, this side it would be down. So it would end up being a mirror image. So I'm just going to leave this at the ready for the next piece and get this down here. And I forgot to do our little postcard, so let's do that. Normally I like doing that first. So we're covering up whatever came before, which is B1, ignoring the future, and folding our current piece over. Now I'll get the glove back on. All right, let's bop that on. Now we have our perfect seam allowance. And that seam allowance is what I like lining up to the piece here. And we don't need our little guide anymore. I'm gonna just toss that. There, so those edges are lined up. The right sides are down. And I'm gonna fold it as if right sides are together. And see, here's what I mean. Now that looks totally oddball, right? It's flying up on the side there, but it's correct because when we fold it down, then it ends up being at the perfect angle, right? So that is the tricky thing with these angles. They look crazy. And that's like the mind bender stuff. So this is when I think it's really important to test our test to see if we positioned it right, because it's hard to visualize compared to a rectangle. Like if I have this up just a hair too high, in theory, when it comes down, look, I might have totally missed an area here. So that's a big problem. I don't want that to happen. So I am going to test this. Remember, I need it to cover this shape plus a generous seam allowance. We should have cut our piece big enough, but it still needs to be positioned right too. So I'm guessing right now. Okay, let's flip it and do our pretend stitching with our pins. So I'm going to pretend stitch along our line. Use 2 pins. And I'm going to pretend press. So along those pins. Ooh, I got a little fold in my fabric there. There we go. All right, so let's see. Did we cover our piece? All right, we needed to cover the B2 piece. I don't need to worry about covering the B4, so I actually have like quite a bit more space down here than up here. Because remember, I only needed to cover the B2 piece. I'm a little shy up here, I think. So I need to shift it up this way a little bit. So up that way. So let's take our pins out. Okay, so this way a hair. See, I would not have guessed that. Let's do our test again. These angles can for sure be tricksters. All right. Much better. So again, remember this is the B4 piece. You got to imagine that's not there. But did I cover that B2 plus our generous seam allowance? And there, it's a lot more equal now. So we're better off right now. So we're ready to sew. Let's put the fabric, flip the fabric back here. And I can just actually leave the pins in. And I'm going to sew along this line. So now you can see this part of the line hits the edge. So I have to go into the seam allowance here. But this one does not hit the edge. It stops right there. So that one I'm not going to continue on. I'm going to stop right at that line. All right, let's sew. All right. Uh-oh. Oh, my light might have burnt out on my machine. Oh, it still works. Oh, new light bulb time, I guess. Well, it was flickering for a little while. It's still running though, so boo. Oh, but hey, maybe not so bad because our vacuum cleaner is at the shop right now, and the vacuum cleaner is the same guy as our sewing machine guy, so he might have some lights there. So maybe when I pick up the machine, my vacuum, I can get another light for this. I think that might be the original light from the 70s in this machine still, so I don't know, pretty impressive that it worked this long, I suppose. So I won't know if it's on or off now. All right, and then trim these guys up here. All right, there. See, it looks super goofy, right? But when I fold it, it's going to fold down at a perfect angle. It's kind of magic. All right, so let's press that. Oh, that's a good idea, Jennifer. I should take the old one with. I will do that for sure. I think we might try and pick it up tomorrow, so I'll make sure to remember to do that tonight yet. Or maybe I'll just write myself a note because it's probably pretty warm. It's probably hot right now, that light. Okay, that side of the cone is done. Let's do the other side, and luckily we have that piece cut already, so this should go pretty quick. And I think we'll finish this B section tonight too. So tomorrow we'll just be finishing this up. That should go very quickly, actually. All right, fold in that B3. Oh, get the glove on. Get the LED light globe, they're brighter. Oh, so maybe I'll just order one. I don't know if they'll have that. I'll ask if he has an LED version. He might not have anything. We'll see. But it might be a serendipitous time for that to happen. Okay, so here's our fabric. Remember, the right side is down. I can't tell because it's white, but I remember to note that that side's down. So here you go. I'm going to line up my edges again. Then I'm going to fold it as if those are putting the right sides together along that edge. And we get, again, our goofy shape. That is going to be correct. So let's lay it out where I think it should go. Flip it over. Let's do our test. I don't always test rectangles because those are so easy to visualize. They just go directly across, but these angled ones, I just about always do a test for them because they're a brain teaser for sure. It's a good spatial geography or geometry sort of thing. All right, I don't have near enough up here, so I'm gonna have to scooch it way up. So good thing I tested that. So yeah, I gotta scooch it up that way. Quite a bit, actually. I think I erred. I was thinking that I had it be more on that side, but it was actually the opposite. Oh yeah, you're right, Amy. That's right. We're not done. I got that strawberry to put on top yet. Okay, good. So tomorrow we'll finish up the paper piecing of this for sure. And then we can start on that little applique and embroidered little strawberry. That's right. Totally forgot about that part. All right, we have plenty here now. I think we're good to go. I'm going to flip it back and let's sew along that line. Again, one side of this, the side that touches the edge, I'll go into the seam allowance. Oh, I just tried to turn on the light that was already off. Oopsie, it's harder to aim in the dark, I guess. I went a little far into the edge on that one, but it's not gonna bother anything. All right, and then into the seam allowance a hair, 1/4 inch or so. Snip those off. Okay, let's press it. Forgot about that strawberry. Ooh, we'll have to pick out fabric for that yet. That'll be cute. Oh, it's a cone. Too sweet. All right, it's coming along. All that's left is this big piece on the bottom. So I'm going to, let's just trim it real quick, just because that's on my brain. And then we'll find a piece of white that is big enough for this piece. I'll have to cut out the template piece too. All right, fold that over. It's sometimes a little harder, these long skinny pieces here. But there we got it. If you sewed a little over the edge on a different line, you can just tear the paper a little bit so it folds flat. Look at that cute seam allowance we're cutting off. They do, Robin. So a lot, as far as I can tell, I haven't ordered any myself, but I follow some vintage sewing machine Facebook pages and stuff, and it seems like people are buying like those old, they even look old still, but they have like the shape of them. I guess that's not an old shape, it's just a sewing machine shaped light bulb. But yeah, they do come in LEDs now. But it's that bright blue LED. I think they have different colors. Like they have a warmer LEDs now too. Maybe, I don't know. We'll have to check it out. All right, trimmed. Now I need a rectangle that will fit that size. Let's see what I got left on my fabric here. Oh, I might not even have a piece big enough. Let's get my guide out. I think it's a little easier using the guide. So let's trim that B4 piece. I might have to really Frankenstein cut up this white, but that's okay. That's what it's there for. All right. Yeah, we'll see if my sewing machine guy has anything, and if not, I will try ordering an LED version. All right, too short that way. I think we're gonna have to get it by going across this whole thing here. Feels like a waste, but it'll be fine. I'm gonna use my ruler, I think, to cut this because this is kind of a big piece. All right, so I need to match this edge right here. So that's gonna be my really good straight edge. I'm just gonna use my add a quarter ruler. Estimate that. I'll get my glove on. That seems generous enough. I think I'm actually just gonna go to there. This side I'm just gonna cut freehand. Again, that side isn't the side that needs to be perfectly straight. And boop, there we are. So here's an odd piece of fabric, but we'll use it as scraps. Okay, now this is that edge. This is the nice edge that I want lined up. So I'm gonna get that out of the way. I'm gonna put this guy here. And now I'm going to just flip it so the right sides are together. There we go. And this piece, again, this is a rectangle. I don't think I really need to test it. I mean, my edges are obviously going farther than here. We're gonna be fine. However, I think I'm gonna still pin it because this is a big floppy piece. I'm not sure I'll be able to keep it. Oh my gosh, I can't even pick it up. I'm not sure I'll be able to keep it from moving around like that edge. It already moved. There, this edge needs to match up. So I'm going to pin it just to keep my edges matched up. There we go. All right, let's sew it. Last piece. And I'm going into the seam allowance again. All right. Move that pin. All right, and get a little back tack in the seam allowance there too. Trim and trim. All right, let's press that, and that should be that. Oh, you have one for your featherweight, one of those light bulbs. And it doesn't get hot. Oh, well, that's a good reason enough to get a LED one, because this one that I have now gets really hot, and, well, now it's burnt out, so. Got too much use. Okay, there we are. Oop, I forgot to undo the glue there. That's washable, so that'll come out. Cute. That is it for the B section. All I need to do yet is just trim. Remember, I'm going to leave that edge around it, but I am going to trim up here because that's the part that goes to the other piece. So let's turn it around again. I'm going to get my bigger ruler, and we're going to go a 1/4 inch from our stitch line, or our line right there. There we go. There, that's our good 1/4 inch seam allowance. Cute! All right, so all we have left are to sew these two pieces together, and we will do that tomorrow. So ultimately, these points will be together. So tomorrow, the reason I'm not just zipping across it tonight is because it's a little more involved than that. We have to line up this point here to this point here. And it's a little deceiving because this is at an angle, right? And we need it to be a 1/4 inch in to allow for the seam allowance. So there's some matching up of points that we're going to want to do here. So we'll focus on that tomorrow. And then we'll be able to take out all of this paper and work on the little strawberry that will go on top. We'll have to pick out fabric for that and see what we come up with. That'll be fun though. I'm excited for that. All right, you guys, I'm gonna flip you around and we'll call it an evening. Alrighty, so if this was only paper piecing, I would say it's probably a 2-evening project, because if I wasn't jibber-jabbering this whole time, I probably would have had enough time to do this final putting the two pieces together. Oh my gosh, that's cute. It's cute. I like it. It's like a caramel chocolate chip sort of cone, I suppose. Some praline something or another. Rocky road. There, it can be like a rocky road. All right. So we will work on that tomorrow again and start the applique. And that will be on the Facebook page here, on the Penguin and Fish Facebook page. It'll be at 8:30 p.m. Central. That's 9:30 Eastern and 6:30 Pacific. And then it will also go up on the Penguin and Fish YouTube page. So that's youtube.com/penguinandfishmovies. That'll get you there, and just search out for the comfort food block. Oh yeah, they're like sprinkles. I think so. Awesome, you guys. And again, if this was a little too confusing tonight, be sure to check out last night's video, because that's when I think I explained things a little bit more in depth there. So awesome. Have a great evening, you guys, and good night.